Now, you see that almost $2 trillion of taxpayers' money, totally unconstitutionally, which for which the government has absolutely no right to do, because we didn't pay taxes for the bailout. We paid taxes to run the government.
Right.
Right. And they were just rewarded to the people who should have been in the jail.
Who still should be in jail.
Who should have still been.
One of the guys should be in jail is Geithner.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm serious.
I agree with you.
I mean, how do you not pay your taxes? And you're right, you're the architect of the TARP bill, you're the head of the New York Fed, but somehow you can't pay your own taxes? What the heck is that?
Yes,
what happens if you don't pay your $30,000 in taxes?
That's one thing.
They're garnishing your wage, they're taking your food from your kids, and they don't care. He just goes, well, it was just an oversight. I'm sorry. Here's a check. And how much money did he make for writing TARP? Because at the time he was not. He was still an employer, or he was still employed by the Fed of New York.
Right. See, these things, I would say, I don't know, maybe they're true or not true, and how much they're the truth and how much the exaggeration and propaganda, but this is a fact that no one can deny, is that he was the chairman of New York Fed when all this mess happened.
What was the big one that fell? The big investment company that fell, that had been around. Lehman Brothers. 125 years, right? They had been around.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's supposed to be in charge of what happens over that security exchange, because he's the head of the New York Fed, which though that is the financial institution of the Western world, right?
Which should have the oversight over the Wall Street.
Supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is what's interesting too with the Lehman Brothers thing. The company fails, but they have everything sold through the weekend, so when Monday comes around, all the assets are gone. Now Lehman Brothers actually had a lot of assets, more than they had in outstanding debts. Where'd that money go? Nobody knows.
I don't know about that. I don't.
No, but nobody knows. I mean,
Uh-huh.
what happened to that? It's the same thing with Corazon. How many millions or billions are gone? I don't know where that money is.
This is another thing,
How does that happen?
This is another thing, although it's unconstitutional, it's illegal, I think it is just a robbery of taxpayers' money.
Yeah, but it's white collar crime, so
Right.
it's not the same thing. I mean, if you were to go into a bank and hold it up with a gun, it's called armed robbery. But if you put on a three-piece suit and you come in with very expensive shoes and a Rolex watch, and you have a briefcase, and you get out of your limo or your driver's car, it's not considered the same thing. I don't see the difference there. They're the same to me. Whether you have a gun or whether you have a pen and paper, you're still infant people.
This is the thing, if a hungry person steals a bread from a grocery store, he goes to the jail.
Yes.
He goes to the jail, but you can
take someone's retirement.
Billions of dollars and trillions of dollars of the investors, of the people, of your customers and stuff, and still you can get away. And instead of getting punished, you get golden parachutes. You get the
unless you're Madoff. He's the only one.
I think the only reason Madoff got caught and punished because he messed up with a lot of powerful and rich people.
That's the only reason.
Only reason. If his culprits were just like poor people,
everyday average people,
nobody would have ever cared to catch him.
Yeah. Or if they did catch him, he would do his 5 or 10 years, and he'd have to pay back a couple $100 million. Meanwhile, he walks away with 60 to 80 billion. I mean, that's not anything. If I've got $80 billion and you want me to pay $200 million in fines, ooh, that's so much. That hurts so bad. That's like giving $20 away.
See, the Abramovich, he's out of jail.
Yeah.
He's written a book about how to stop corruption in lobbying.
Yeah.
Now he was the biggest, most corrupt lobbyist himself.
Well, he wasn't corrupt. He just took advantage of the loopholes.
Right.
That's the thing about it. I mean, it's no different like even with campaign contributions. Who decides if it's really for the campaign or if it goes to a friend of mine for a kickback who happens to own a bus company or a plane company? You know what I mean? It's a fine line. And the same thing with lobbyists. They are borderline, but they're lawyers. I mean, that's how lawyers work. Unfortunately, and I'm not saying all lawyers are like that, but their job is to know the loopholes. They know how close to get to the line, and they know when to pull back. And unfortunately, that's how they run politics.
He did cross the line many times.
Well, I'm sure he did. But the only reason he got in trouble is because someone was upset because he was making more money than they were.
Right.
You know that. I mean, that's how that game is played. If you want to get along, you make sure everybody is happy. So you're greasing this palm's been greased. Hey, we're all getting what we need. It's fine until somebody gets upset and wants a little bit more. And then all of a sudden, the whistle blows. And everybody gets in trouble. And unfortunately, that's how that part of politics works. Mm-hmm. And that's in any country. In any political system.
Unfortunately, in our system, it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that obvious. That's what it should be.
It should be that obvious. It shouldn't be that way.
But that's life. That's human nature.
Unfortunately, it is.
I mean, that's just human nature. I mean, unfortunately.
That's that's where this it may not be a good thing, but this always reminds me Nietzsche. That's what Nietzsche say. These 2% people have always ruled the world, and they will always rule the world. There is no way to get around it. Even in democracy, ultimately these 2% people will take over, and they will be ruling the whole world. And that's what is happening over here in the United States too. I mean, this is where I like Ron Paul, because he's the only one who talks about it.
Yeah, but he's also a participant in it. He's made a great living being a politician for 30 years when he could have been an economist, which he is an economist. Now, if it's such a horrible system, why hasn't he made his mission to actually change the system? Now, he's made recommendations, but I have not seen him put up his retirement papers.
He's a medical doctor, I think. He's a medical doctor. But
okay.
But the thing is,
isn't it much easier to be a politician and make $174,000 a year than to go and actually work for a living as a physician? On call, weird hours, holidays, weekends.
But he is. I think he's in politics on a mission.
What's his mission?
I think he's the only successful libertarian politician in a long time.
It's only because he has a great district in Texas who supports him. Mm-hmm. Anywhere else, he doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And maybe in Oregon or Utah. I mean, he doesn't exist.
I agree that, but
So, I hear his message, but he can't relate to me. He really can't, because he hasn't worked for a living in so long that he's forgotten what it feels like to literally punch a clock and actually have to punch out for lunch, punch back in to finish your shift. Oh, you may have to stay over because we've got some more things that need. This is the problem with politics. Term limits should be instituted. It should be understood. You're in here for one term, that's it. This is not a career. You don't get a retirement. Okay? Your medical stops once you finish your 2-year or 6-year term. That's it. But when you're in something so long, you forget. And we always see it all the time in our job. Person who's a staff person comes in, they're working alongside of you, 4 or 5 years. Then they get promoted to management. What happens?
Suddenly they don't even
remember anything.
They don't even remember who the hell will get this.
So think about it. If that happens in 1 year, what happens after 30 years? They can't even relate. They don't even know what it feels like to be in your shoes. That's why I hate the fact that when a career politician who has been in it nonstop has all these wonderful ideas. Well, if they're so wonderful, why haven't you worked hard to implement them?
But he has very consistently been a constitutionalist.
He's been consistently voting constitutionalist, but he is no different than the other predator that's sitting in one of those seats. That's been there forever, who we know gains more power the longer you're in.
People are electing him again and again because they're satisfied with him, what he's been doing.
If you bring me the bacon home, I'm satisfied. I'm not mad at that. That's what your job is. But at the same time, he tries to present himself as this huge radical person on the fringe of the Republican Party, and the reality, he should be an independent because he is a libertarian. He's not a Republican.
So that's the problem. We have a monopoly, two-party monopoly on our
but independents do well in both houses. They do well.
political system, you can. That's what he was in. What's that NBC show on Sunday morning?
Is it CNBC or Meet the Press?
Meet the Press. Yeah, on the meet. He was on the Meet the Press, and they, asked him, "Are you going to run?"
Why do they keep? Everybody keeps asking him that.
Are you going to run as a libertarian or as a third party or whatever? And why don't you run as a?
Why do they want to? You know why they want to do that?
Right.
You know why, right?
Yes. And so he said, you know what? The problem is that if I was a libertarian candidate, I was probably not even have been on this show right now.
He would not even be in the ballot.
Right.
He wouldn't even be in the Iowa primary at all.
Right. So this is the problem. This two-party monopoly. It's you just have to take side on one of the parties.
Well,
otherwise you have no future.
But here's the reality. Reality, in both parties there are good things. That's the reality. Unfortunately, hardline ideology takes away even from the good things that you know about both parties and makes you choose one extreme or another. They want him to break out in the third party because they want to make sure that the Republican doesn't he doesn't get there. He doesn't even come close to beating Barack in a national election, which is what Ross Perot did successfully when Bush was running against Clinton. I mean, he stuck his hand in there and he took the votes that would ordinarily go to Bush, went to Ross Perot, which made Clinton a shoo-in. That's exactly what they want now. They want this subliminal thought that, if Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, he's going to run in as an independent, which is going to take the vote away. So, yeah, we want that idea to be out there already. So when the Republicans lose, they don't know why. And that's what they want.
But Ross Perot snatched a lot of Democratic votes too.
Yeah, but he got more votes that would have gone to Bush because of his conservatism. Remember, he was the fiscal conservative, where Bush was a Bush. They can be conservative, they can be moderate. But at that time, because Ross was so conservative, he made Bush look even moderate. And everybody knows that's not true, but that was the perception. So he was able to garnish some of those independent votes and the conservative Democrats and basically give Clinton the win. I mean, because it wasn't a landslide win. It was just he took those votes.
I think he was probably he was not a bad candidate.
Who's that?
Ross Perot.
Yeah, but he had some major
issues.
Major problems with his campaign in general. Remember, he had actually quit the campaign, and then he came back in. So, I mean, he was a viable candidate. He was. I voted for him. I know a lot of people who voted for him. If I had understood that my vote was basically canceling out a Bush vote, I probably would not have voted for him, though. But that wasn't my understanding because I really thought that he could win. And the media kind of made it sound like, well, he could probably win, which was once again playing into that. I mean, and I'm being honest. I'm being honest because I'm thinking, well, he could probably win. I mean, he sounded like the things that he was saying were making sense. You were like, okay, this is something that I can get a hold of. And he appealed to the people like me and independents and conservative Democrats and even more conservative Republicans who were just like, well, Bush looks like he's going to fall apart. He's not going to make it. He's already passed out overseas. He's going to die. And, this guy looks younger. He has more vitality. He seems to be, ready to go.
He has a business experience and all that stuff.
Not that we really needed it at that time, which we do now.
That's what it is. The people like Ross Perot and really rich people, Forbes, Trump, they cannot do this. So it's such a huge and such a strong grip of two parties and political system.
I'm okay with the two-party system. I just want them to have the best candidate available from each party. And unfortunately, I don't think that's what we're getting all the time.
I personally believe in competition. I think that more competition creates more choices.
But unfortunately,
it makes you honest.
In a political arena, all those choices dilute the really best candidates because basically whoever has the most money is going to win. Whether you have two parties whether you have 4 parties.
And cut.